Hare Krishna, Raji. Hare Krishna, everyone. I'll just take 1 minute to switch. Is my screen visible, Praji?
Yes.
Krishna.
Yes, yes.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So we are discussing chapter 24 from Srimad Bhagavatam, and the chapter is titled as just one second. And the chapter is titled as the Renunciation of Kardama Muni. So just for a quick recap,
रिकैप हो रहा है अभी इंग्लिश वाला
so far we have seen that this conversation is taking place between Vidura and Maitra Muni. So these were the four layers, the five layers of Srimad Bhagavatam that Kumar Prabhu once mentioned that are taking place in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are in this section where Vidura and Maitra Muni are conversing. And so far, what we have seen that Kardama Muni, he meditates on Lord for 10,000 years. And before that, he has been ordered by Lord Brahma, and he has been given this responsibility to increase the population of the world. So he meditates on Lord Vishnu for 10,000 years. And Lord Vishnu, he appears and he asks Kardama Muni what he desires. So, like the desires, and Kardama Muni, he mentions, he asks for a wife. And Lord Vishnu, he fulfills the desire. He tells Kardama Muni that he will receive, like, Swayambhu Manu with his wife will be approaching to him with their daughter. And along with that, he also bestows his mercy on Kardama Muni by telling him that he himself will be appearing as a son to him as Lord Kapila. And then the day next to the day when Lord Vishnu appears in front of in front of Kardama Muni. Swayambhu Manu with his wife and daughter, he comes to Kardama Muni, and uh, there is whole conversation. I won't go to the details of that again. So real quick, the wedding happens, and Kardama Muni, he is meditating on the Lord again, and his wife Devahuti is very devoted towards her husband. She serves him. She does her best while serving to him, and while serving to him, she gets weakened and emaciated. And so after that, she mentions to her husband, like Kardama Muni is very pleased after seeing his wife doing his seva. So after that, she tells him her desire to beget children. And Kardama Muni mentions her to, like, she has become weak and emaciated, and he suggests her to go to Bindu Sarovar, and she goes there, and it's a complete makeover. She comes as like very pretty, and then we read about the aerial mansion, and they get 9 children. So there are 9 daughters that she begets. And after that, Kardama Muni, he tells her that since he has fulfilled her desire for children, now it's his time to renunciate. So she laments about that. She gets sad that he's leaving, and all the daughters, when they'll get old, they'll just leave with their husbands, and she'll be left alone as she gets old. So Kardama Muni, so that's where we left. That Devahuti was lamenting, and one line she mentioned while she was saying that the association of devotee, it should be uplifting, like for a materialist or a non-materialist person, it should be uplifting for the person in the association of a spiritually advanced person. So this is where we have left so far, and let's start reading. So there are 47 verses. So I'll appreciate if there can be three devotees volunteering. Yes, Krishnan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So how many verses, Mataji?
So 15 verses per devotee, Prabhuji. The last person can read 17 verses.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Recalling the words of Lord Vishnu, the merciful sage Kardama replied as follows to Swayambhava Manu's praiseworthy daughter, Devahuti, who was speaking words full of renunciation. The sage said, "Do not be disappointed with yourself, O princess. You are praiseworthy. The infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead will shortly enter your womb as your son. You have undertaken sacred vows. God will bless you. Hence, you should worship the Lord with great faith through sensory control, religious observances, austerities, and gifts of your money in charity. The personality of Godhead being worshipped by you will spread my name and fame. He will vanquish the knot of your heart by becoming your son and teaching knowledge of Brahman." Sri Maitreya said, Devahuti was fully faithful and respectful towards the direction of her husband Kardama, who was one of the Prajapatis, or the generators of human beings in the universe. O sage, she thus began to worship the master of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sorry, let me read that sentence again. O great sage, she thus began to worship the master of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart. After many, many years, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madhusudana, the killer of the demon Madhu, having entered the semen of Kardama, appeared in Devahuti just as fire comes from wood in a sacrifice. At the time of his descent on earth, demigods in the form of raining clouds sounded musical instruments in the sky. The celestial musicians, the Gandharvas, sang the glories of the Lord, while celestial dancing girls, known as Apsaras, danced in joyful ecstasy. At the time of the Lord's appearance, the demigods flying freely in the sky showered flowers. All the directions, all the waters, and everyone's mind became very satisfied. Brahma, the firstborn living being, went along with Marichi and other sages to the palace of Kardama hermitage, to the palace of Kardama's hermitage, which was surrounded by the river Saraswati. Maitreya continued, O killer of the enemy, the unborn Lord Brahma, who is almost independent in acquiring knowledge, could understand that a portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his quality of pure existence has appeared in the womb of Devahuti just to explain the complete state of knowledge known as Sankhya Yoga. After worshipping the Supreme Lord with gladdened senses and a pure heart for his intended activities as an incarnation, Brahma spoke as follows to Kardama and Devahuti. Lord Brahma said, My dear son Kardama, since you have completely accepted my instructions without duplicity, showing them proper respect, you have worshipped me properly. Whatever instructions you took from me, you have carried out, and thereby you have honored me. Sons ought to render service to their father exactly to this extent. One should obey the command of his father or spiritual master with due deference and say, Yes, sir. Lord Brahma then praised Kardama Muni's 9 daughters, saying, All your thin-waisted daughters are certainly very chaste. I am sure they will increase this creation by their own descendants in various ways. Therefore, today please give away your daughters to the foremost of the sages with due regard for the girl's temperament and likings, and thereby spread your fame all over the universe. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Soham Prabhu.
Yes. O Kardama, I know that the original Supreme Personality of Godhead has now appeared as an incarnation by his internal energy. He is the bestower of all that is desired by the living entities, and he has now assumed the body of Kapila Muni. By mystic yoga and a practical application of knowledge from the scriptures, Kapila Muni, who is characterized by his golden hair, his eyes just like lotus petals, and his lotus feet, which bear the marks of lotus flowers, will uproot the deep rooted desire for work in this material world. Lord Brahma then told Devahuti, My dear daughter, my dear daughter, my dear daughter of Manu, the same supreme personality of Godhead who killed the demon Kaitaba is now within your womb. He will cut off all the knots of your ignorance and doubt. Then he will travel all over the world. Your son will be the head of all the perfected souls. He will be approved by the acharyas, expert in disseminating real knowledge. And among the people, he will be celebrated by the name Kapila. As the son of Devahuti, he will increase your fame. Sri Maitreya said, after thus speaking to Kardama Muni and his wife Devahuti, Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, who is also known as Hamsa, went back to the highest of the three planetary systems on his swan carrier with four Kumaras and Narada. O Vidura, after the departure of Brahma, Kardama Muni, having been ordered by Brahma, handed over his 9 daughters as instructed to the 9 great sages who created the population of the world. Kardama Muni handed over his daughter Kala to Marichi and another daughter Anasuya to Atri. He delivered Shraddha to Angira and Havirbhu to Pulastya. He delivered Gati to Pulaha, the chaste Kriya to Kratu, Khyati to Bhrigu, and Arundhati to Vasishtha. He delivered Shanti to Atharva. Because of Shanti, sacrificial ceremonies are well performed. Thus, he got the foremost Brahmanas married and he maintained them along with their wives. Thus married, the sages took leave of Kardama and departed full of joy, each for his own hermitage, O Vidura. When Kardama Muni understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the chief of all the demigods, Vishnu, had descended, Kardama approached him in a secluded place, offered obeisances, and spoke as follows. Kardama Muni said, Oh, after a long time, the demigods of this universe have become pleased with the suffering souls who are in material entanglement because of their own misdeeds. After many births, mature yogis, by complete trance in yoga, endeavor in secluded places to see the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rajani, scroll. Yeah. Not considering the negligence of ordinary householders like us, that very same Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in our homes just to support his devotees. Kardama Muni said, You, my dear Lord, who are always increasing the honor of your devotees, have descended in my home just to fulfill your word and disseminate the process of real knowledge.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Vishal Prakash Prabhu can finish the chapter.
My dear Lord, although you have no material form, you have your own innumerable forms. They truly are your transcendental forms, which are pleasing to your devotees. My dear Lord, your lotus feet are the reservoir that always deserves to receive worshipful homage from all great sages eager to understand the absolute truth. You are full in opulence, renunciation, transcendental fame, knowledge, strength, and beauty, and therefore I surrender myself unto your lotus feet. I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descended in the form of Kapila, who is independently powerful and transcendental, who is the Supreme Personality and the Lord of the sum total of matter and the element of time, who is fully cognizant, maintainer of all the universes under the three modes of material nature, and who absorbs the material manifestations after their dissolution. Today, I have something to ask from you. Who are the Lord of all living entities? Since I have now been liberated by you from my debts to my father, and since all my desires are fulfilled, I wish to accept the order of an itinerant mendicant. Renouncing this family life, I wish to wander about, free from lamentation, thinking always of you in my heart. The personality of Godhead, Kapila, said, whatever I speak, whether directly or in the scriptures, is authoritative in all respects for the people of the world. O Muni, because I told you before that I would become your son, I have descended to fulfill this truth. My appearance in this world is especially to explain the philosophy of Sankhya, which is highly esteemed for self realization by those desiring freedom from the entanglement of unnecessary material desires. The path of self realization, which is difficult to understand, has now been lost in the course of time. Please know that I have assumed this body of Kapila to introduce and explain this philosophy to human society again. Now, being sanctioned by me, go as you desire, surrendering all your activities to me, conquering insurmountable death, worship me for eternal life. In your own heart, through your intellect, you will always see me, the supreme self effulgent, soul dwelling within the heart of all living entities. Thus, you will achieve the state of eternal life, free from all lamentation and fear. I shall also describe this sublime knowledge, which is the door to spiritual life, to my mother, so that she also can attain perfection and self realization, ending all reactions to fruitive activities. Thus, she also will be freed from all material fear. Sri Maitreya said, thus, when Kardama Muni, the progenitor of human society, was spoken to in fullness by his son Kapila, he circumambulated him, and with a good, pacified mind, he at once left for the forest. The sage Kardama accepted silence as a vow in order to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and take shelter of him exclusively. Without association, he traveled over the surface of the globe as a sannyasi, devoid of any relationship with fire or shelter. He fixed his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman, who is beyond cause and effect, who manifests the three modes of material nature, who is beyond those three modes, and who is perceived only through unfailing devotional service. Thus, he gradually became unaffected by the false ego of material identity and became free from material affection. Undisturbed, equal to everyone, and without duality, he could indeed see himself also. His mind was turned inward and was perfectly calm, like an ocean unagitated by waves. He thus became liberated from conditioned life and became self situated in transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead, Vasudev, the omniscient super soul within everyone. He began to see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is seated in everyone's heart and that everyone is existing on him because he is the super soul of everyone. Freed from all hatred and desire, Kardama Muni, being equal to everyone because of discharging uncontaminated devotional service, ultimately attained the path back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Roji. Thank you so much to all the readers. Let's start with the prayers. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कथमयं ददाति स्वपदन्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादां सगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चना गौराङ्गी श्रीराधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लगायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरून् दीनपालनं Hare Krishna. Thank you so much to all of you for joining, and thank you again to all the readers. So, as we read and as we discussed, that we are going to talk more about the renunciation of Kardama Muni. So, this might not be actually, this is not the best representation of the chapter. So, I apologize in advance for the presentation of this chapter and for the mistakes that I might make while talking about or discussing about the chapter. So this is the summary of what we read. From initial verses, we saw that Kardama Muni was instructing his wife Devahuti. Then from 5 to 9, there was the appearance of Lord Kapila. Then Lord Brahma, he appears and glorifies Kardama Muni, Devahuti, and their son Lord Kapila and the Lord. From 2025, Lord Brahma, he returns to his planet and it's the discussion about the marriage of the 9 daughters. After that, the Kardamuni, he prays to Lord Kapila, and Lord Kapila, he responds to Kardamuni's prayers. And then finally, Kardamuni, he renunciates and he go back home, back to the Godhead. So starting from the first where Kardamuni is instructing Devahuti, so it's mentioned that we also read in last chapter that she was sad and lamenting. And so Kardamuni, he tells her that do not be disappointed. So she's lamenting and feeling unfortunate and thinking that I'll get a son. She's thinking, she's still confused that will I get a son or will I not get a son? And Kardamuni here, he's guaranteeing her that yes, you'll get a son, and not only any son, you'll get a son, but you'll get the Supreme Personality of Godhead as your son. So this is Krishna here. Like we have times in our lives where we feel disappointed and we are confused and we are in doubts that and whether I'm making progress in my spiritual life or not. And then there could be conflicts in my relationship, in my material life, my business is not progressing, and there are problems. There are all kind of problems, and we may feel that there is no future, but there is always a future beyond our expectation when we are dealing with Krishna. We must remember that the troubles, the problems, they all are temporary. And there will be troubles. It's the nature of the world. The matra sparshas tu kauntaya. So, so this is from Sarvadrika Prabhu's class, who was talking about this verse. And he mentions that there could be this question like in our material life, what do we do? Like the problems are going to be there. So as the Matra Sparshas to Kauntaya verse suggests, the solution is to tolerate. If you do not like the hot season, the cool season is coming. If you do not like the cool season, hot season is coming. If you do not like sunny day, rain is coming. So there is always like nothing is permanent. It's all temporary. And Dvanda Mohena Bharata, Bhagavad Gita 7.27, it's the world of dualities. So, what is the solution? The solution is to tolerate. And by tolerating, we come closer to the goal. And because many things are beyond our control. So, coming back to Devahuti's situation and Kardamuni instructing her, here he mentions her to worship the Lord with great faith. He has already told her that the Lord will be appearing in her womb. So he instructs her to worship the Lord with great faith, sensory control. So Prabhupada also mentions and emphasize on restraining the sense gratification. So what does it mean? Like one must control senses. So we know that we have read it many times that this is required for spiritual life. This is required life after life. We have been so habituated to please our mind and senses. So it appears like great austerity to control our senses. So when it's the most natural thing. So for example, if right now somebody gives me a phone and asks me to watch a movie or surf the internet or just relax, I would have like I'll be having absolute no troubles if wasting those 3 to 4 hours. But at the same time, if somebody tells me to sit and do japa, and it's simple that you just have to move your fingers and speak Lord's name for just 4 hours, and that appears to be a great austerity. So why this happens? So he mentions Sarvadrika Prabhu. He mentions that Prabhupada gives this nice example. A man, he cannot forget his mother. Mother is our first guru. Why can we not forget our mother? Because our body is a product of her body. It's the same flesh. It came from her body. So he mentions that Prabhupada says in the same way, we are born into this material world. So it's like Maya is our mother, and it feels very natural to be in Maya. But do we belong here? So Maya, Prabhupada mentions in one of the purports, not in this, like Prabhupada mentions this somewhere, that Maya is our mother and she is giving different types of dresses. Maya Bahu Rupaya. Actually, it's in a lecture for Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.2. So Maya Bahu Rupaya, because we are attached to the dress that Maya is providing us, and according to the form, it's our consciousness is getting like becoming accordingly. Like we get different taste based on the dress. So Prabhupada mentions that if you become transcendental to your body, then your taste will be transcendental as well. So that was one thing. It struck me. I never thought about it this way that why is it so natural to be in Maya? Like we are born here, and it's the world, it's the material world. Everything around us is material, most of the things. And so yeah, I really like this example. I never thought it this way. But yes, of course, there is pain and there is temporariness because this is not where we are supposed to stay. I'll just take a quick pause and see if anybody has anything to say so far. So again, in the last verse where Kardama Muni is instructing Devahuti, he mentions that the Lord will come and vanquish the knot of her heart and by becoming her son and teaching knowledge of Brahman. So in the purport, Prabhupada he explains more on that what does this knot mean? Like Hridaya Granthi he mentions. So this is the knot that we get delving deeper into our relationships. He particularly mentions for people who hanker after material possessions, society, friendship, and love. This knot of affection becomes very strong. So there is not in our heart, based on the society, friendship, and love for family members and relatives we have. But as soon as Krishna comes to our life, our love goes to him. At least it's supposed to go to him. And then we begin to see everything in relationship to him. Society, friends, love, they all become centered around Krishna. Our family becomes Krishna's family. Our possession becomes those things utilized in the service of the Lord. Society becomes society of devotees and love for the Vaishnavas. So, and Prabhupada, he mentions it is only by Brahma Bhavna, the instruction by which spiritual knowledge is enhanced, that the knot in the heart is cut to pieces. So this is exactly what Prabhupada has been doing. He has been giving us the instructions, the spiritual knowledge through his books, through his Vani, because there is no material sword or there is no existing any sword that can cut that knot. It is the spiritual knowledge, and this is what Prabhupada and the advanced devotees and all the devotees who are preaching and doing and book distribution, like everyone who is serving the Lord in some manner, is trying to enhance or provide that spiritual knowledge. So this is the only way that knot in our heart can be cut, and we can welcome Krishna into our lives. Another thing that yes, another thing that Kardama Muni tells Devahuti here is that you'll spread my name and fame. So this is one thing that Gaurang Darshit Prabhu he mentions that when a husband when a husband he attained something like Kardama, he did 10,000 years of meditation. He remembered the Lord for 10,000 years. He did all the austerities. And who was getting the reward? Not just him, it was his wife as well. So when spiritual master or spiritually advanced devotees, when they do something elevated or something advanced, it's not just them, it's the people who are related to them as well who get all those all the fame or all the glories as well. For example, if a disciple does something good, the glories goes to the spiritual master as well. So in this case, Kardama Muni is mentioning that having Lord as their son, it's due to the Lord that both of them will get the fame as well. Like Mother Yashoda as well, Mother Yashoda, Mother Devki, Nanda Maharaj, all of them are known because of Krishna. So this was one thing. And then Not is also mentioned in text 18 as well. There, Lord Brahma is telling Devahuti that Kapila Dev, Lord Kapila, he'll cut off all the knots of your ignorance and doubt. So, yeah. Uh, so Krishna, as I was talking about fame, everything and everyone related to Krishna, they become glorified. And Krishna reciprocates because he's pleased with his devotees' devotional service. So, to the extent our devotional service is filled with devotion and pleasing the Lord, that would be the extent he'll be giving us the mercy. Ye yathamam prapadyante. So if we give 10% to Krishna, he'll reciprocate with 10%. If we give our 100%, he gives his 100%. Of course, that's a great deal because my 100% is very, very tiny in front of Krishna's 100%. So this is a great deal. So these are not my words. These are Vaisaki Prabhu's words. So he mentions when the love of Krishna in our hearts expands, then then we become completely satisfied, joyful, blissful, ecstatic, fulfilled, and there is no longer hankering for anything. So hankering, it comes from like Prabhupada, he mentions for those people who hanker after material possessions. So we know how to give our everything to someone we love. We have been doing, yeah, we know like how to love, and we have been doing this for millions of years. Now we have to love someone like we have been loving like someone. Now we have to love Krishna in the same way. We have to just take that same propensity and give it to Krishna. So there are questions like, if I do that, if I give Krishna my 100%, I'm going to lose everything in my life. For example, some people say if I give all my money to Krishna, I have zero left for myself, and I cannot do this. I have to take care of my family, myself. But Krishna is not interested in our material acquisitions. All he needs is our love, is the love from our heart. So if we give 100% of our love to Krishna, we still have 100% for our family because love is not something, is not like a material thing. So I hope I'm audible. Hare Krishna Prabhu, could you please confirm once if I'm audible?
You're audible to me
Okay,
so far. What happened?
okay. I lost Wi-Fi on my phone, so I was just wondering.
Acha. I think
Yeah.
it's been good so far.
ठीक है, ठीक. Thank you, brother. So yeah, so this was about love and the knot being broken by spiritually enlightened people and spiritual knowledge. So then comes text 5 where Prabhupada is talking about how the husband becomes the spiritual master as example, like as exemplary in the case of Kadama Muni and Devahuti, as like the way he was instructing his wife. So because he instructed her on how to achieve spiritual perfection, he naturally became her spiritual master also. So there are many instances wherein the husband becomes the spiritual master. So it's wonderful when the husband is more spiritually elevated than the wife. So I was listening to Gaurang Darshan Prabhu. So there is mostly it's the case that the husband is more spiritually advanced, and in a minute I'm going to talk about that as well. But can any of you remember any scenario where the wives are more spiritually advanced than the husband?
The Nagapatnis.
Right. Perfect. Yes.
The
So
Brahman Patnis.
yes, the Brahman Patnis as well. Thank you.
Mandodari.
Sorry, Proji.
Mandodari.
Yes.
I
I
mean,
myself didn't know the answers. Gee, I just knew Brahman Patni, so thank you for enlightening me with the answers. I
Mandodari
don't
is,
know.
yeah, I mean, she's not necessarily spiritually advanced, but at least she was advanced more than Ravana
Mm,
because she gave him good advice. Leave this guy alone, leave this Sita alone, like that. So maybe.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Pradeep. So Prabhupada mentions that generally, stree or woman is less intelligent than man. And therefore, if the husband is intelligent enough, the woman gets a great opportunity for spiritual enlightenment. So question arises that why does Srila Prabhupada, he mentions that women are less intelligent here. So Vaisakhi Prabhu, he mentions because a woman always look for a husband who is more intelligent than her. She doesn't look for a husband who is less intelligent than her. Now, because women are intelligent, they want to associate with people who are more intelligent. And if the husband the woman chooses is actually intelligent enough, then the woman gets the spiritual opportunity to get enlightened. So this is like one perspective to see that. And also for the man, it's stated in the Shastras that they should try to associate with more advanced or intelligent men. That will be beneficial. So Vaisakhi Prabhu, he adds to that there are scenarios when people associate with someone who is less intelligent. So he mentions there are two type of mentalities. One, when you associate with people more intelligent, who are more intelligent than you, that is for your spiritual advancement, for your spiritual, like for if you want to progress. And the other one is when you are when you associate with someone less intelligent. So one mentality for that could be to control that person or to take advantage. He mentions that that's what the politics is all about. So as Vaishnavas, we should try to associate with more spiritually enlightened people. And then in this verse, in the text 5, Shraddhaya word is mentioned, and in past as well. Uh, Kardama Muni, he said to Devahuti that with great faith, yeah, he said you should worship the Lord with great faith. And similarly in text 5, faith has been mentioned, Shraddhaya. So receiving knowledge from spiritual master or executing devotional service, both of these they require great faith. Here Prabhupada mentions that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary has specially stressed the instruction of the spiritual master. One should accept the instruction of the spiritual master as one's life and soul, whether one is liberated or not liberated. One should execute the instruction of the spiritual master with great faith. So, Vaisakhi Prabhu, he mentioned that Prabhupada, he read Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, and after that, like he received his instruction from the spiritual master, and based on this commentary, like based on what he read from because he was interested in reading Shastras and gaining the spiritual knowledge. So, after reading this from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, he made his spiritual master's instruction as his life and soul. But there is something opposite to great faith that we read we in the knots of, like, the opposite to faith is doubtfulness. So here Lord Brahma also told Devahuti that he'll cut your knots of doubt. So at one place we are talking about faith, but usually, like being in this material world, generally we do have doubts, and the doubts may arise at any point. So before that, Prabhupada, he mentions about, like, we talked about how husband becomes the spiritual master. So Prabhupada, this came in recently. So Vedic civilization means the husband should be a sincere servant of Krishna and the wife should be a sincere maidservant of the husband. So yeah, talking about doubts. So there are before going deeper into doubts, I'll just this verse is also related. The purport of this verse is also related to the previous one, like taking the spiritual master's order. There should be like yes, sir, and Prabhupada mentions that there are two birth. One is from the parents, from the actual father, and the second is from the spiritual master. So sometimes the father and the spiritual master, they may be the same man or they may be different. So the order of the father or the order of the spiritual master must be carried out without hesitation, with an immediate yes. There should be no argument. So this is what Prabhupada mentioned, and the previous purport was also along the lines. But as I mentioned that there are doubts and we might have doubts at some stages. So now the question arises. This question was asked by a devotee in a lecture. So this is question for all of you as well. That Arjun throughout the Bhagavad Gita, he was asking Krishna question after question. So really expressing his doubts and having those doubts to the point when he went like, I give up, I agree. So how do we pack these purports and the situation like uh, Arjuna's doubts and questions in Bhagavad Gita altogether? Anybody? Yes, Manan Prabhu.
So to clarify the question, are you saying that Arjuna accepted Krishna as a spiritual master in the beginning? Why is he not just saying yes and asking questions?
Yes, Prabhuji. Like, why? Why did he had like? Why didn't he just accepted Krishna's instruction and just went to fight and finish the war instead of asking questions after questions?
Yeah, I think at the end of Bhagavad Gita, it says, Nashtamohan, Smriti Gata, that now my illusion is clear and I accept whatever you say as an absolute, and I'm going to do as you say. Um, but this is one thing I've been learning also, that in the beginning, the surrender of Arjuna says 2.7, that I surrender unto you. But there's a difference between the surrender there and the surrender at the end of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna also at the end, he says that I have given you all the instructions. Now you deliberate upon what I have said and decide what to do. So, though it is that the spiritual master's orders are accepted as it is, the disciple is encouraged to deliberate upon them. I think I've heard recently that Srila Prabhupada once said that you have to surrender with your intelligence, you don't surrender your intelligence. So, this, you have to use your intelligence in understanding who the spiritual master is, what are the instructions, how to follow them, and you ask questions and clarify. And when things are completely clear and you're free from all illusion has been mitigated, which is what the spiritual master does, then one executes. It's not a blind acceptance. That's how I'm understanding it.
Nice points, Prabhuji. Thank you for mentioning that. Jagannath Gopal Prabhu.
So, yeah, I mean, in line with what Manan Prabhu mentioned, yes, this purport does say that we should ask without questioning, but Krishna,
No, Prabhuji. He doesn't mention Krishna here.
huh?
No, Prabhuji.
No, sorry. I'm just a little spaced out. But what I'm saying is, Arjuna was asking question after question to Krishna, right? And then what we are saying here is whatever the father and the spiritual master says, the order should be taken without argument, yes. But then what I'm saying is Krishna in the Gita also says Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, right? So you also go approach a spiritual master and question. So as Manan Prabhu mentioned, that deliberation is So I guess there is a difference between argument, and there is a difference between clarification and argument. So there, yeah, I mean, we have to see with what motivation we are questioning our spiritual authorities. If it's from a point of a challenge that nowadays, usually kids have a very antagonistic thinking about their parents. Like they think parents are useless, they are nonsense, they don't know anything. That kind of argumentation is not encouraged. This is how I'm taking this purport. But the healthy questioning, the healthy discussion, healthy clarification, I don't think that is to be avoided, is my understanding.
Brilliant points, Prabhuji. Yes, Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu.
Yeah, I was also thinking on the same lines. Um, I think there is always a scope of negotiation. There are many examples where disciples have negotiated with Prabhupada. And there's one famous example when one of the disciple he knew that Prabhupada is going to ask him to become a temple president, and he went to him prepared with all the reasons. And as soon as he went to Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, "Take sannyas." And he then gave one reason after another. And at the end, he said, "Prabhupada, I'll do anything, but I can't take sannyas. Tell me, I'll do anything." So Prabhupada in the end said, "Okay, become temple president." So, and this is, of course, Prabhupada one here, but there are many examples where uh, there is a scope of negotiation. It's not like uh, we have to take it yes and without any uh, uh, argument or anything. Also, with doubt is like I feel with doubt everything starts. I heard this from Keshav Swami Maharaj that doubt is like seed for everything, but it has to be dealt in very mature way. So he said there are three ways to deal with doubts. One is you discuss, you find the right person in your life, your mentor, your guru, to discuss with them and to clear your doubts, like how Arjuna did and surrendered to Krishna. Second is you delay the doubt, because sometimes what happens with the experiences or when days pass, you get that knowledge Krishna reveals to you through in some way. And third, he said you should sometimes downplay the doubt, because sometimes it's just the mind which is unnecessarily giving some silly reasons. So we should sometimes downplay the doubt. So he said discuss, delay, and downplay.
Those are really, really nice points. Discuss delay and downplay. Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning those. Yes, Madan Prabhu.
So actually, excuse me. So this discussion, I wanted to we share one understanding and get feedback from devotees around that. So whenever Prabhupada says, "Fallen is to choose spiritual master or father," there is an implicit and often explicit statement of a bona fide spiritual master or authority means somebody who's in good standing. That that is, if they're not in good standing, they're not really an authority. So there's an implicit idea that they are in good standing. And when I look at these statements, I see in that light, if it's in good standing, then they should be taking the argument, the doubts that are coming or the reluctance that might be coming because of one's attachments and so on should be set aside. And one should take on and listen to the higher indication coming from them. So that there are two areas of use of intelligence. One is the thought in good standing. In present age, many times fathers may not be representing the Lord, or somebody who is in a position of authority may not be in that position. And I think that's the context in which Prabhupada said that I think there was a temple where devotees, with the temple president, was in New York actually, where the temple president had gone completely and clearly out of track, and devotees were still, not protesting or objecting. I think given by these sense types of statements that one should accept authorities without question. So even though they were in a position of authority, when they had clearly lost that position, that has to be questioned. I think that's what Rupa said, that you don't surrender your intelligence, you surrender with your intelligence. So, and I see myself well, a lot of places where I'm making similar mistakes. So there is this kind of doubt, or when the position of the authority itself is in doubt, and I think these things don't apply. But when the authorities are in good standing, then one should not argue because of some reluctance coming out of a place of attachment. That's one way I'm hearing, but I've often heard the other side that whoever is in the position of authority, your intelligence is positive. You don't know what's right, what's wrong. Your considerations are always um, infected by some material tinge. So one should accept without argument, which I feel now is dangerous. So that's why I wanted to put forth and see what devotees have to say to either clarify or correct.
Really powerful and insightful inputs, Rajiv. So yeah, does anyone has anything to say? Like, how would you go ahead with those doubts?
On the second point, right, Prabhuji, where on the second side where uh, the second side where which says we have to accept the order unhesitatingly, even if it's wrong, it's a purification for us. That you're asking, how can we think of it, right?
I think that the idea there is that you cannot doubt somebody who's in a position of authority.
Sorry?
That you cannot doubt somebody who's in a position of authority.
Oh, like
because
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or that you cannot trust. Yeah. So I think that's the part which is very difficult, and where a lot of challenges have been there.
Understood. So I had a discussion about this with one devotee, one senior devotee. That senior devotee directly said, if somebody is guiding wrongly and someone is following them blindly, actually both get karma. The who Prithu, please, Amma, Nindar, self Nindar. The person in the position of authority gets the karma for guiding wrong, and the person blindly following also gets the karma. In that, his life there is trouble in his life because of following instruction blindly. So, whatsoever this whole notion that spiritual authority is to be accepted, come what may, is rejected. I mean, this was what that devotee said, and it does make sense also in the sense that, yeah, I mean, we should evaluate, as you mentioned, everybody may not be on that same platform. But then again, with that thinking also, we risk that consciousness where we start, evaluating from a judgmental perspective. That is also like we have to guard against that. It's a very thin line, I would say. But yeah, that is what I feel. This whole notion that authority has to be followed blindly, I think it's wrong. It's just plain wrong. We can't do that. Yeah, just my thought. Yeah.
So one resolution I'm proposing here is that the authority should not be, or somebody should not be accepted as authority blindly. There has to be a proper evaluation whether somebody is an authority or not. So that acceptance should not be blind. But once one has accepted an authority, once one knows that this person is bona fide and authoritative, and I place my faith in it, then the following, again, it's not blind following. There is again questioning and clarification, but there is no arguments at that point. I mean, that's how I can resolve this particular statement, that the father and the spiritual master should be taken without argument.
Yeah. That's true. And one more perspective here is, thank you for bringing that up. One more perspective here is, sometimes as practicing devotees, we may be missing out on something, right? So, like, we may be missing out on some perspective with our limited understanding, and our authority may have that higher perspective. So, yeah, in that case, sometimes even if something doesn't make sense to us, we just have to bite the bullet and follow. Uh, but yeah, as you said, once we have put faith, then that is easy to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much, devotees, for coming up with the invaluable inputs. So, yeah, so there is this thin line is actually very important to like where we are being extra cautious while following the order or when we are blindly following the order. So, yes, so this question basically exactly the same question was asked to Vaisheshika Maharaj when he was discussing this chapter. So Maharaj, he mentioned that like something we already have discussed that the doubts, the guru is meant to remove the doubts, and one has to ask the questions. Like Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu mentioned, like doubts, like they are the initial points, and one does not have to be lazy about it. So Srila Kaviraj Das Goswami, he mentions in Chaitanya Charitamrita in Adi Leela, Siddhanta baliye jite na kara alasa, iha haite Krishna lage sudreda manasa. So do not be neglectful about discussing or asking about the topics that may seem controversial, as then one can come to Siddhanta conclusion. So the doubts they help one to progress towards their spiritual life and to come to understand to have the precise understanding of the truth. And it's also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.21, Tasmat Gurum Prapadyate Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. So you should inquire about the absolute truth. So Prabhupada says one, but Prabhupada he also mentions that one should not put forward absurd inquiries to their spiritual master or anyone in authority. So what he mentions as absurd that in Japan there was a devotee who this is I think recorded as well. So a devotee he came and asked Prabhupada if he met Indra or not. So that's categorized as absurd inquiry. So one should ask question, but then it should be done in the mood, as we already discussed this, that the mood of those questions should be it should not be challenging. The mood should be to clear the doubt. So so yes, that's one thing. And there was one example that was given, like there was one example that was mentioned uh about Prabhupada and one devotee mentioning, like telling his needs and his situations clearly about accepting the sannyas or president position, like Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu mentioned. There was one more example that was given in this Vaisheshika Prabhu's discussion that Prabhupada he asked a devotee to go to a place in Iceland to open a temple there. And the devotee, he had his doubts about his ability to do so. But he felt like that Srila Prabhupada is asking him to do it. And his god brothers were saying that Prabhupada said, like Prabhupada has said in the past, with the instruction of Guru comes the empowerment. So he went to the Iceland. And when he got there, he tried to do something to fulfill Prabhupada's instruction. But he knew that, like, he saw that the things, they weren't working out and he found himself in a spiritual slump that he wasn't able to do his sadhana very well. So he ended up coming back and he was sort of feeling ashamed. So he approached Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I'm really sorry, I disappointed you. And then Prabhupada asked him, what happened? So the devotee told Prabhupada that he had a feeling already that he won't be able to do it. And then Prabhupada asked him, why didn't you tell me, like, why didn't you? Of course, this is paraphrased version of what actually happened. So Prabhupada asked him, like, why didn't he express the doubt or explain the situation to him? So this was mentioned in Vaisheshika Maharaj's class that while one may want to say yes, sir, like Hamadaji also mentioned in the chat, we also need to understand the reality. We all discussed, like this is the essence of what we discussed, that even like while we are we want to like blindly or whatever the instruction is, or the eagerness to say yes based on the purport or the instructions or whatever we read, we also need to understand the reality of our situation, our own limitations, and we may express it like if the situation is feasible that yes, sir, like going along the lines, I may be able to do it. I need some support, or maybe delaying the instruction if that's required at the moment. So those were some things that came up in Maharaj's lecture and discussion. So after that, this is just something that I really like. That this is in the text where Lord Kapila Dev's appearance is described. So there it's Prabhupada says that fire is already present in word, but by a certain process, fire is kindled. So I really liked it. I really liked the analogy of God residing in our hearts. So, and like Gautama Prabhu he mentions many times that everyone's time come, like for spiritual practices as well. So this is what I was able to like. Everyone, all of us have Krishna within us, and it just the love for Krishna just needs to be kindled. And Prabhupada also mentions here is about like it could be thought that the Lord is appearing in devotee semen. So he mentions that it should not be taken like an ordinary being. So just as an ordinary living entity takes his birth by taking shelter of the semen of a certain living entity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he accepts the shelter of semen of his devotee and comes out as his son. And this manifests his full independence to act in any way. And it does not mean he's an ordinary living entity forced to take birth in a certain type of womb. He gives example of Lord Narsingh Dev, Lord Varaha Dev coming out of nostril of Brahma, the Shwet Varaha. Lord Kapila, he appeared in the semen from in the semen of Kardama Muni. But this does not mean that nostril of Brahma or the pillar of Hiranyakashipu's palace or the semen of the Kardama Muni is the source of appearance of Lord. So I really like the emphasis on this part. And then in text 10's purport, he mentions that there is another Kapila who exists in our scriptures. And he mentions the distinction of the two Kapilas. So there is an imitation of Kapila who has Sankhya philosophical term. But this Kapila that we are talking about in this chapter, he's the incarnation of God and is different from the other Kapila. And yeah, this is one more example, like the fire example. This is one more example that I like that Prabhupada mentions that the candle, that there is no difference between one candle and another, but still the candle from which the others are lit is called the original. So I really like this analogy as well. So Krishna is there for the Parabrahman. And yeah, so here Prabhupada mentions that a conditioned soul in the material world has disqualification of cheating, and he has 4 disqualifications. He is sure to commit mistakes, he's sure to be illusioned, and he's prone to cheat others, and his senses are imperfect. So just a few days ago, I coincidentally ended up on a quote from on ISKCON Chapati's page where it mentioned that 4 principles for advancing in spiritual life are sadhu sangha, sadhu seva, nam kirtan, and jivadaya. So if these are taken up, these 4 disqualifications can be minimized to much extent. So sadhu sangha is like seeking the company of saintly person for inspiration and guidance. Sadhu seva, enlightening, serving the enlightened beings, the advanced, the devotees around us with humility and devotion, of course. Nam kirtan, the chanting japa we do for purification and divine connection. And the jivadaya, showing compassion to all living beings through kindness and service. So then there is this beautiful verse, Jnana Vijnana Yogena Karmanam Udharana Jata Hiranya Kesha Padmaksha Padma Pudra Padma Bhuja. So this is about the parents of Lord Kapil. So by mystic yoga and the practical application of knowledge from the scriptures, Kapila Muni, who is characterized by his golden hair, his eyes just like lotus petals, and his lotus feet, which bear the marks of lotus flowers, will uproot the deep-rooted desire for work in this material world. So I really like this reminded me of Kunti Maharani's prayer as well. So yeah, this is how the purpose of appearance of Kapila Muni that Lord Brahma also mentioned to Devahuti and Kardama Muni that he'll come to present the philosophy of Sankhya, the Sankhya Yoga. So those who are trying to get out of the entanglement by speculation are also doing their best. But in Vedic scriptures, we find that if one has taken to the devotional service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness, he can be very easily uproot the deep-rooted desire for fruitive activities, and the Sankhya Yoga philosophy will be broadcasted by Kapila Muni for that purpose. And then his bodily features were described. And while going through the chapter, Brahmana, he came with Narad Muni and the four Kumaras. So it is mentioned that he came with the Naishtika Brahmacharis. So Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, he mentioned about the Upakarna, if I'm pronouncing that right, Brahmacharis and Naishtika Brahmachari, and Kardama Muni was from the Prabhuji, am I pronouncing that right? What's the second type? It's Naishtika Brahmachari.
It's Upakurvan.
Upakurvan. Thank you, Roji. So, Kardama Muni was Upakurvan. So, these are brahmacharis who stay brahmachari for a certain period of time and they get married. They may or may not get married, I guess. And Naishtika brahmacharis are the celibate for life. And if I'm correct, Naishtika brahmacharis are the one who can do the worship of Lord Nrsingadev as well, the Shila of Nrsingadev. So, yeah, this is the picture where Lord Brahma is returning back to his abode after getting the 9 daughters of Muni married to different sages. Now, in the purport of the verse where the marriage of different daughters of Kardama Muni is talked about, Prabhupada mentions about man and woman that they should not be united simply on the consideration of the sex life. There are many other considerations, especially character and taste. If the taste and character differ between the man and woman, their combination will be unhappy. So Chandramauli Maharaj, he talked about this verse and he mentioned about these two things, the temperament and the likings, basically the character and the taste. So the character it includes the nature and personality, while the taste it includes where is your direction in life, like what is your purpose, what is important in your life. But nowadays, as we see that these two things, they are not given much attention. Mainly, it's the physical attraction or the sexual expertise that seem to attract people. But the problem with these as well is that these things may bring people together, but they are not the foundation or the lasting principle that allow the relationship to develop. So he mentions that anything on the bodily level does not really have a foundation in relationship. Relationship has to go at least at certain level of existence. And Prabhupada mentions a girl of godly quality should be handed over to a boy of godly qualities, and a girl of demoniac quality should be handed over to a boy of demoniac quality. So, yeah, this was really strong verse that I wanted to discuss. So, first, my question would go to married devotees. So, like looking back and like to both newly and previously married devotees, like what advice would you give to the unmarried devotees in the discussion, including me, about preparing spiritually before marriage? Two things that Prabhupada mentioned, like temperament and liking. So I was hearing one more lecture, and there it was mentioned that the people who are involved in like the man and woman involved, they are unable to judge the temperament, their compatibility and character and taste by themselves. So they mentioned that it's the people who are facilitating that marriage are the ones who are mostly taking care of those things. So I don't know, like that's what like I'll just leave the question on you. Like, what advice would you give, like, to prepare before marriage? Don't waste time, get married. Haha. Yes, Jagannath Prabhu.
Since others are silent, I'll just chime in.
Yes, Project.
One question I had was, you did mention that uh, it should not be just be based on physical attributes, physical considerations. It should be temperamental. But even so, even if it's based solely on temperamental level, also, that is also like I guess I don't know whether I guess where I'm getting at is your last point that you mentioned. If we are trying to on our own think that solely based on my temperament, I'm going to kind of choose this or that person, then that could also backfire. And there actually we do need some authority, some well-wishing. I guess what is important is the authority has to know us. In my case, it was my mother. She knew me, so I left it to her. You search. Of course, she did check with me. It's not that it has to be completely on the authority or on your whatever guide who is guiding you, and it doesn't also have to solely be based upon my own understanding. Then it needs to be both factors need to be involved. And yeah, I guess that these are some thoughts. And blessings are also important, I feel. This whole thing about to involve somebody who knows us, who knows our temperament, to involve them. It's actually related to blessings also, because we need to have blessings also. With blessings, anything can become spiritualized in one sense. That is one consideration, uh, is what I feel. So yeah, I don't know. It both have to be there. The extreme that, oh no, only I get to choose and nobody has any say in this, right? Everybody else is wrong, only I am correct. That is also not right. And on the other hand, the other extreme that सब छोड़ दिया मैंने, जिसको लाना है लाओ, I'll get married. That extreme is also, I guess, wrong. There has to be some deliberation on our part. And yeah, both factors have to be there. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Because why I'm saying this is, what happens is, if the first extreme, of course, where somebody might say, "No, I will still choose the extreme where I am deciding everything, because if I make a mistake, then I'll just blame myself, right? I'll not blame anyone else." But the other extreme where I'm totally depending on someone, if it doesn't work out in the future, I might unko kosunga मैं, things of that nature, right? But then even blaming yourself, throughout our life and remaining frustrated is also wrong. And blaming the other, whatever elders are involved, that is also wrong. So yeah, that's why I'm saying both need to be there. Either extreme is there is a possibility that things could go wrong. I'm not saying they will go wrong. There is a possibility.
Really helpful points, Roji.
I don't know.
We will know soon, Roji.
I
Yeah,
mean,
thank
I
you.
don't have any experience in terms of helping people get married in that respect. Gaur Kumar Prabhu, Nitya Mataji, other devotees here, they are more experienced. I'm just saying based on what I feel. So
Mm. Thank you. Thank you, Roji. Yes, Nandi Mataji or Ritesh Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I don't have an advice as such. It's more like something to stand by. It's more like be true to who you are and letting that be clear to the other person. I think the right person will stick by. And yeah, like it's more like, if that is the right person and you're just expressing yourself truly, then yeah, basically that will lead to something. Otherwise, you will find something to not go forward or something like that. Yeah, I hope it made sense.
Yes, Proji. So basically being authentic.
Yes, be authentic to who you are, and the right person will stick by. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important. Thank you for mentioning that, Proji. So Krishnan Prabhu, he asked about the astrological charts and compatibility based on that. And Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu, he responded that that's what the purport says. It's astrology, they did match the taste and character. Yeah, so Chandramauli Maharaj, he mentions that astrology is secondary. First, it should be astrology can help in like confirming the taste and character and the compatibility. But Chandramauli Maharaj said that initially it should be their individual character and taste, like how compatible they feel with each other and the person who are facilitating their marriage, see how much those things match. And astrology is again secondary because he included in the taste that what is your purpose in life, what is important in your life. For example, if we match the astrology and still their nature or their advancement or their perspectives about Krishna consciousness or devotion do not match. So in that context, he mentioned that astrology is important, but it's still secondary. So I think we are over time.
One
So yeah,
last thing about astrology I just mentioned. So
yes.
astrology is it can be tricky. That's why I mentioned in the chat also that we need to take multiple opinions. And my personal example, before I got married to Aishwarya, I was given a marriage prospect. The Mataji was very like coming from a very nice devotee family, initiated parents and everything. And then I went to, like, my mom went to our astrologer. He said, no, this is not going to work out. No way. Right. And then they are like, they said, their astrologer said, this is a very good match. Now, what do you do? So eventually, of course, I got married to Aishwarya. So of course, I said no to that. But that's there with astrology. It's tricky. We have to find, yeah, it's tough with
Yeah.
us. But it does give like a preliminary opinion. Yeah, it is, I guess, a necessary but not sufficient condition. Maybe let's put it that way. Necessary but not.
Mm,
So
true. True, Fuji. I agree. So I hope Krishna Prabhu is little satisfied with the answer. Anything, Krishna Prabhu?
No, thank you so much. That was very useful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Prabhuji. So I'll just quickly conclude. So there was one more question along with these lines, which I'm not going to start upon, like the opinions about devotees emphasizing marriage between two devotees. So we will leave that for some time. Just quickly, that why Kardama Muni, he wanted to renounce in spite of having Lord as his son, like Nanda Maharaj. And so that was a question that Gaurang Darshan Prabhu, he asked in his lecture. So Nanda Maharaj, he didn't know that Krishna was his son. So he gave three reasons that why Kadama Muni he wanted to renounce. So first, it was in alignment with Vedic injunctions that one should leave home at certain age. Second, it was to avoid the mixture of dasya and vatsalya rasa. So since he had been fixed in the Lord since birth as a servant, so he wanted to fulfill his dasya rasa. And then the Lord, he would have made him renounce anyway, and why not renounce immediately? And fourth, it was more important for him to worship. It is more important to worship and remember the Lord constantly. So these are the reasons that Gauranga Prabhu he mentions. And yeah, so there are really, really beautiful purport provided by Prabhupada. So he mentions that it is important. It's mentioned in scriptures that one should renounce and go to forest at certain age. So he mentions in his purport for 41st verse that why is it, what does in this age means to go to the forest? So I would really recommend reading that purport. And lastly, thank you to like some of the lectures that I heard. Thank you to Prabhupada, Sarvadrika Prabhu, Vaisaki Prabhu, Vaisheshika Maharaj, and Gaurang Darshan Prabhu, Gaurakumar Prabhu for handling my questions, and Jagannath Gopal Prabhu for tolerating my last minute questions as well. And thank you to all of you for patiently listening and tolerating me blabbering all through this. So thank you very much, dear devotees, and sorry for going over time. Hare Krishna. I think we will end here.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for all the valuable inputs as well.
Thank you very much, Ma. Very nicely prepared, as Manan Prabhu mentioned. And yeah, I mean, when you texted me saying that you may not have time to prepare slides, I'm like, okay, at least put the questions that you want to ask in a big font so that devotees can read and contemplate. But it was, I knew somewhere in the back of my mind that you will still do a terrific job in preparing everything. And you did have very good slides. So thank you for that. And yeah, as always, very well researched. You heard so many classes, and yeah, it's just this is what uh, we want to discuss also like this. So yeah, thank you very much, Ma.
Thank you so much, Rudy. Thank you for the opportunity as well. So yeah, I think we will end here. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Anand Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, everyone.